Hi, I'm Matt.
Hey there, I'm Bianca.
And we're from Club Sapphire. And this is our first video of the new year, so I'm a little excited.
Yay!
Yeah. So we've been doing this now for a few years for Club
Yeah.
Sapphire. We're actually getting closer to 100 videos for them.
That's
so
incredible.
Isn't that amazing?
So great, and thank you all for watching. And when you're here at the club, coming up to us and giving us feedback and telling us how great it is, and sending in your questions. We love it when people send in questions about what to do in different situations and that. So
Sure.
Keep doing all that.
Yeah. And as you can see, we've been doing this a long time. We've been together a very long time, 25-ish years or so. And we do get the question a lot from people who don't know about the lifestyle. Like, we'll do a video and someone will comment that thinks the lifestyle is weird or crazy, or that's a bad thing to do for your marriage, and they ask, is it a good idea for your marriage? Is it a good thing for your marriage? And it depends is the answer.
It depends. It depends on you and your relationship, and I mean that two things: you and your relationship, both of you.
What do you mean by you?
Well, for example, if you're, one of you in the relationship is a very jealous type.
Okay.
Swinging is probably not going to work for you.
Well, that's an interesting thought, because, jealousy is something that a lot of people do struggle with, and jealousy is something that a lot of people ask about and are concerned about.
Right.
But honestly, jealousy does come up with everyone.
Sure.
And it really boils down to how you deal with it, how you handle it, how you work through it. And
that's where "and your marriage" comes in.
Okay.
Because if you've already got the type of relationship where you two can talk about anything and everything under the sun, and I'm not talking movies or that kind of stuff, I'm talking about real raw feelings.
Okay.
Especially if, do you feel comfortable talking about what you want or what your sexual needs are? Do you feel comfortable talking about that with your partner?
Right.
If you do, that is a great step towards becoming comfortable within the lifestyle.
Okay.
Because that is a huge part of the lifestyle, is communication.
Sure.
Even people that have been doing this a really long time, like Matt and I, we still communicate. We still talk after every single time that one of us, either whether we play together with a couple or play separately, we still kind of go through and talk about the experience, the good things, anything bad that happened. Even after all these years, we still talk openly about it. So that's always something we've talked about. Very important thing about the lifestyle is you have to be able to have an open, honest communication with your partner.
Sure. And, when I think back to way back, even before we started the lifestyle, when you talk about how open you are, how well you communicate with your spouse or your significant other, and how vital that is, I think back to when we first were dipping our toes into anything, because we were together for many years, and we were very vanilla. Our sex was very vanilla. We didn't do much outside of what, sticking tab A into slot B, and the lights off, and the hole in the sheet, and
missionary.
All.
It wasn't that bad. Oh my gosh.
Wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. But when we started to spice it up, that's where it started to kind of trickle in, which eventually led to the lifestyle. I remember fairly vividly when we were having sex at one point quite a few years ago, and you started just kind of like talking dirty to me or whispering in my ear, something along those lines. And as you were kind of telling me this sexy story as we were having sex or whatever it might have been, that you brought another person into the story, another woman into the story, and I just was like, oh, hey, this is I like where this is going. And you obviously could tell my response to that I was enjoying this.
Right.
And I don't think you were necessarily, trying to see what my response was, in the sense of you wanted to bring another girl into the party.
That wasn't really in my head.
No, right, exactly. You were just kind of playing around, doing something for my enjoyment, and it got a really positive experience, and was just enough that after that had happened a couple of times where we had done something, a little bit of role play that way, it kind of became a little bit of a conversation. Hey, what do you think if would that be crazy if we actually did bring another woman into the bed with us? And it was just enough to start the conversation.
Right.
And here we are, years later, and we've had a girl or two in bed with us, or two. And so it boiled down to the fact that you were brave enough to have that conversation with me, and just kind of tap it a little bit to see what my response was.
Right.
And in the same vein, the fact that I responded so positively to it made it kind of grow a little bit, and that we could play with it more, and that we could talk about it and eventually go into all the other things that we talk about on these videos about how to take the steps.
And obviously, if you had a negative reaction to that, me bringing that storyline into our bedroom, that would have been a point to put on the brakes, or maybe have a conversation and discover why you were like, don't talk about another woman or whatever. You can look at those negative things that might happen as just negative zip up, don't talk about it ever again, leave it alone, or maybe look at it as an opportunity to grow as a couple.
Sure.
Learn something new about your spouse. Maybe your spouse is like, I don't want another woman in the room, but another man or another whatever. Maybe there's some other avenue. So, I don't think communication is so important.
Right.
And just taking that step forward, that leap of faith in, let's just talk about this. Why is this bothering you so much?
Right.
And let's discover this, because that's really what the lifestyle is about, is discovering yourself sexually, intimately with your partner. And it's just don't let that conversation just die.
Sure,
right
and going back to that, if that would have been your motivation at that time, if you were like, I want to test the waters with Matt to see how his response is because I would love to bring another girl into bed with us. If that was your motivation at the point, which, I would look at as fine, but you don't know. You don't know how my response is going to be. But you could probably guess. I'm sure we probably talked about porn. I'm sure we probably talked about this or that, or, just because that's such a generic thing. How do you think I would have responded if you would have tried to bring another guy into that talk? That might have been very different. Right. I don't know. I honestly have no idea how I would have responded at that point. Now I'm like, okay.
But that's the thing, is you don't know necessarily if your partner is going to respond in a positive or negative way, and it's important to explore either way they go.
Sure.
You really liked that? Well, let's do this again and see how it goes, or try a different technique or whatever. And if they don't like it, explore what they don't like. Maybe he didn't want, like I said, maybe he didn't want another woman brought into the story. Maybe he wanted another man in the story.
Sure.
Maybe your partner is dealing with some deep-seated bisexuality that they didn't realize they knew was in there, or was too afraid to bring it up and talk about it.
Right.
Now they've got the opportunity, and now you can look at that, explore that part of your relationship.
Sure.
There are so many different avenues you can go on in this lifestyle, even if it's just spicing up, your relationship with your partner, and just going to a place like Club Sapphire and just being in that sensual, sexy atmosphere, and then going into a private room in the back and playing just the two of you, because you're so crazy turned on from everything that you've seen and heard, and just the sensuality of the space that you're in.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that either.
Right. And of course we went a little bit off track as far as what our original conversation was supposed to be about. But it really, as far as
is it good for your marriage?
Is it good for your marriage? But these are the types of things that really boil down to just, communicating and seeing if, backing up, if you would have been bringing another guy into the story of when you were, and I would have gotten upset or been like, oh, no, that would have been a place, okay, maybe either this is a really bad idea because we're in the middle of sex and suddenly he got really jealous because I talked about another guy, and this could go the other direction too, that if I was doing that to you, we were having sex and I'm like, and then, look, the mailman came in and he wanted to join us.
I'd rather the pizza delivery guy.
Well, sure.
Then we
Big
get a
sausage.
snack afterwards.
Before and afterward. Yeah.
But But the question is swinging good for your marriage? And here's what I think about that.
Okay.
Communication is good for any marriage. And being in the lifestyle, you are almost forced to communicate. I mean, no one's telling you have to communicate, but you need to communicate in order to be successful at this hobby. And I think that in itself can be fantastic for your marriage. Obviously, we always tell everyone, this lifestyle is not for everyone.
Yeah.
It's not, a cookie cutter thing. Everybody has a different journey within the lifestyle and a different direction that they go. And you have to honor as a couple, your journey and your direction. But that's fine. And like for us, it brought spice into our bedroom, into our sex life, into just life in general. I found that we were doing more like dressing sexier and being sexy around each other just in vanilla world, you know, whether it was sending sexy texts or photos or whatever, things like that. So it brought us closer together for sure. So I think that if you're the right couple for the lifestyle, yes, it can be great for your marriage. We know so many people within the lifestyle that have been married for a really long time.
Decades.
We've been married for 20-something years, and we're, like, compared to a lot of people out there, we're babies.
Right.
Compared to the marriages that we've heard of.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think it's because of the communicate, and I really don't feel, and I'm sure there are some people out there, but I really don't feel that these marriages that are lasting 30 years or whatever are people that are sleeping in separate rooms and not talking to each other and just staying married for the piece of paper or whatever, the tax reasons. It's because they're truly happy and have found something that works for their marriage.
Right. And from a communication standpoint, I have to say that 100% of the time, when we talk to couples that have just been doing this for a short period of time and are still doing it, that they say the communication between them has gone up by leaps and bounds. They talk about everything, and they're not afraid to talk about things. In the vanilla world, it's not okay for us to walk down the street and I have my eye on some woman's boobs as she's walking by, and it's blatantly obvious that I'm doing that, and then you say, "Wow, that lady had nice boobs." You know, I mean, that those types of conversations don't happen in the vanilla world. They're not okay usually.
Right.
But in lifestyle, stuff like that happens all the time.
Right.
And it's perfectly okay to just be like, "Hey, I like this thing. I don't like this thing. I like this thing. I don't like this thing," and say all of those things.
But it also, I think, because of the communication and the closeness that you have with your partner, it, like you were starting to say, it makes you feel more comfortable asking for what you want. You know, before we were in the lifestyle, I don't think that I would have ever talked about any fantasies that I'd ever had.
Okay.
Because what if you get mad or jealous or whatever, you know? And now that we've been in the lifestyle for a while, it's kind of fun to talk about fantasies that you might have or things that you want to try and add it to your list of your to-do swinger list, you know?
List.
Yeah. So it's a great thing personally to be able to feel that freedom of I can talk to my partner about any sexual desires or anything that I feel I need.
Right.
And it's not going to be met with anger, frustration, or jealousy. It's going to be met with love and compassion and kindness. It may never work out if you are a couple where, you know, I want a gangbang or whatever it is, and Matt's just like, no, that's not for me, like I can't do
one
that.
penis, you get
That's
one.
Okay. You know, you work out what works for you within the lifestyle, and that's fine. But you know what? You were able to talk about that, and that's okay. And I hope that everybody out there reacts with love, compassion, and kindness when someone's talking about something so personal as what their deepest, darkest fantasies are, what kind of porn they like, and would want to like try out someday. You know, that's something that, you know, always keep in your head when your partner talks about what they want, what they're looking for within the lifestyle. Love, compassion, and kindness.
Yeah. And what type of couple is it not a good idea to get in the lifestyle?
I think definitely jealous couples.
Okay.
If you're that couple where you're walking down the street and he checks out another woman and you just go insanely crazy and you just smack him upside the head and you don't talk to him for the rest of the day, probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't join the lifestyle.
And oftentimes it's said that, and this is an important one, is that the lifestyle will not fix a marriage that's already broken.
True.
A lot of people have this concept of, oh, we've been together so long and like we're kind of miserable. Maybe this will bring a spice to our life. It's not an extra thing. It's just trying to do something. And at that point, it's probably not a good idea because jealousy can come up. Enjoyment of, you might like sex with some other guy so much better than me that like it's just like, oh wow, because we haven't had good sex in 5 years,
right.
and it's like those are the things that can be very, very detrimental. So if your marriage is in a very, very strong place, or you're the type of couple that you are, I say marriage. We always say marriage, but you don't necessarily need to be married. If you can be together for 6 months, but you're in a very strong relationship. That's one thing. If you are someone that's actually has a lot of trouble going on for 100 different reasons, now at the very least now isn't the time. Maybe down the road, something along those lines. Yeah. But if you try to fix your marriage with a lifestyle, you could make a lot worse than it is.
Mm-hmm, that's true.
Yeah. And so with that happy thought, let's end with something happier than that.
Well, you did say that. You don't want to use the lifestyle as a spice.
Yeah.
I would like to know what spice lifestyle would be.
What do you mean?
Well, like, is it pumpkin spice? Is it allspice? Is it...
That's how you're ending this video? With a terrible turmeric joke? Oh, man. You know what? You're the pumpkin spice to my latte, baby.
You're so rude.
I love you. Ouch. And with that, make sure that you do go to www.clubsapphire.net and check out all the awesome events that are coming up. And, of course, make sure that you volunteer because that's how you get credit for future parties, which is always kind of nice.
Super fun.
And dress up and see us and visit with us. And if you see us at a Saturday night or any other night party, just come say hi. All right. Anything else you want to say?
No, that's it.
All right. Perfect. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing what your next secret, sexy fantasy is, and see if we can make it work here at Club Sapphire. Perfect.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye.